John was an avid reader, and he always loved getting lost in a good book. One day, he picked up a novel at his local bookstore, excited to dive into a new story. The book was called The Shadow Killer, and it promised to be a thrilling read. As he started reading, John was immediately drawn into the story. It was about a man named Michael, who was being stalked by a mysterious figure known only as the Shadow Killer. Michael was a successful businessman with a loving wife and 2 young children, but his world was about to be turned upside down by the killer's relentless pursuit. John was captivated by the story, but as he read on, he began to notice some eerie similarities between Michael's life and his own. Like Michael, John was a successful businessman with a loving wife and 2 young children. And as the story unfolded, John realized with a growing sense of dread that the Shadow Killer was targeting him as well. At first, John tried to brush off the similarities between the book and his own life. He told himself that it was just a coincidence, that there was no way that a killer was really after him. But as he continued reading, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. As the book reached its climax, John's fears were confirmed. The Shadow Killer was real, and he was closing in on John and his family. John was terrified, but he knew that he had to act fast if he wanted to protect his loved ones. He called the police and told them about the book, hoping that they could help him. But they dismissed him, thinking that he was just a paranoid reader who had become too immersed in the story. John was on his own, desperate to protect his family. John started taking precautions. He installed security cameras around his home and hired a private investigator to look into the book's author. He even considered moving his family to a safe house, but he knew that it wouldn't solve the problem. As the days went by, John became more and more paranoid. He would jump at every noise, convinced that the Shadow Killer was lurking around every corner. He stopped sleeping, unable to shake the feeling that he was being watched. And then, one night, the killer struck. John was home alone, sitting in his living room, when he heard a noise coming from upstairs. He grabbed a baseball bat and crept up the stairs, heart pounding in his chest. When he reached the top of the stairs, he saw a shadowy figure standing in the hallway. It was the Shadow Killer, and he was holding a knife. John swung the bat, but the killer was too fast. He lunged forward and plunged the knife into John's chest. John's wife and children arrived home moments later to find him lying on the floor, bleeding and gasping for breath. They called an ambulance, but it was too late. John died on the way to the hospital, just like Michael had in the book. In the aftermath of John's death, the police discovered that the book's author had been obsessed with John's life. He had been following John for months, taking notes on his every move, and had written The Shadow Killer as a twisted tribute to John's life. The killer was caught and brought to justice, but the damage had already been done. John's family was left shattered, and the book had become a cautionary tale for readers everywhere. From that day forward, John's tragic story was forever entwined with the pages of The Shadow Killer.